All righty, let's get down to business. Okay, where is my clocky clock? Chronometer. So you, my friend, have a very similar chart. Um, our charts are so similar. It's crazy. Let me actually 1 sec. I need to do something really quick. Hold on. But while I'm doing that, I guess I can speak on the very obvious fact that you are, like me, a Pisces Sun, Sag Moon. Um, so who better? I have cat hair in my mouth, by the way, than these three. So I'm gonna be looking. That's all over my face and stuff. But yeah, who better to do reading than someone who shares that? So why not start by talking about what it's like to have a Pisces Sun and a Sagittarius Moon from a person who has one, the astrologer who has one. Um, so the way I have always seen it, quick second. The way I've always seen it has been, um, it's always shown up for myself and for other people I know with this as a split, a psychological split, right? Um, Meaning that there's two very distinct parts of the being. I'll show oh my beard, like it gets to a point, like it happens in one day. Like it's totally fine yesterday, and then it gets to a point where it's like just scratchy. I need to shave it. I'm not gonna do it. Mine kind of scratchy everywhere. Whatever. Anyways, so as I was saying, to have this combination, right? And yours is in the seventh and in the 10th. Okay. Um, there's part of you that wants to just like stay in and meditate. You know what I mean? Like just like very, very introverted. Your ascendant's Gemini. So it's also similar to me. My ascendant's Leo. Those two sextile. So there's one part, the Pisces part, that's like, I just want to chill. I just want to kind of be alone and be in my own energy and meditate and do Pisces stuff, listen to music. I don't need other people. Um, and that part's also very sensitive, very compassionate, very deep, very spiritual, very good at kind of like seeing. Oh wow, you even have. Holy shit, your chart is so similar to mine. Okay, yeah, you're 92. So I've done charts. I've had clients who were probably born like literally like right around you because you also have Venus and Mars and Aquarius just like me, and Mercury and Pisces just like me. So our big six are all the same besides the ascendant. Big six being the big three, Sun, Moon, Ascendant, and Venus, Mars, Mercury. Is your Jupiter in Cancer too? No, it's in Virgo, but that doesn't really. That's not as important as this freaking cat hair. Anyways, so basically, it's like I'm kind of doing a chart for myself, but there are a lot of differences. So the Pisces part is, like I said, so compassionate. I don't really like to go into sun signs that much, but it's a water sign, you know, so it takes in a lot of the energy around it. And having your Mercury there also means that you need to spend time alone, because if you don't, um, you start to take on other people's energy, right? Um, from the sun level, meaning like, you know, sun is like your identity, who you are, but Mercury level also, um, which is your thoughts. And what can happen with Pisces Mercury sometimes is that they can sometimes latch on to other people's thoughts if they're around people too much without realizing it, and become confused of like what's theirs, what's mine, and what's the other person's, you know? So that's why I always tell people who have this type of signature in their chart, um, that it's very, very important to you know, to spend time alone, because it's only through that. So for example, let's say you're like with like your friends, or with whoever, right? Like you're with a group. Let's say you go on like a camping trip or something like that, right? Um, or some kind of travel. Basically, or even let's say you go on a date with someone, right? Um, the best way for you to understand what their energy is, first, it's to be able to define what your energy is, right? So then you can use subtraction, because once you get back, if you've defined like very well like what your energy is, like when you're alone and it's just you and you're kind of just second, just um, so then you instantly know whether that person has like a good or a bad energetic influence on you. Um, so a big thing is learning to trust that gut, right? And sometimes things can get confusing with Pisces Mercury, because you can be so good with like the abstract spiritual concept, right? But then when it comes to like putting together an IKEA furniture or something like that, you know, something more basic, it's more difficult, right? While like with like the very high spiritual philosophical topics, you're just amazing. Yeah, it's just it's interesting, right? It can create kind of like a little bit of a cloudiness around around you know, cognitions and stuff like that. And definitely, yeah, very artistic minded, metaphoric. So you're definitely going to really understand my way of speaking, because I speak a lot in metaphors. I'm very abstract, um because we have the same Mercury. So then there's the Sag part, right? And like my chart, you know, you have like the little Pisces fighting on its own versus like the Aquarius, Venus and Mars, Sag moon, and then for you that Gemini rising, which is definitely on the team of like, you know, it trines your Mars and your Venus, right? It's in the same element as those. So fire and air. Oh my God, I'm just gonna do this. So fire and air are masculine energies. Earth and water are feminine, right? So you have all like me, all masculine, but then you have um you know, your sun in feminine Pisces. So how that can show up is that it can make someone, no, not right now, it can make someone who kind of has this like back and forth, especially with like a Gemini rising, right? Which another cool thing about Gemini rising is that no matter if you're born 92, like you stay looking young. As long as you take care of yourself, you keep a youthful appearance throughout life, right? Now, with what I was saying, the Sag moon, like the moon is the most important part of astrology, right? Then it's the sun. It's like it's like a yin yang, but the moon's more important because the moon is like how you live within yourself, right? It's like your internal environment, it's your emotions, right? So it's like you can't, I always say, it's like you cannot be a happy person if you are not giving your moon sign what your moon sign needs. So the sun is more of like a mission, more of like a identity, like who you are naturally. The moon is like what runs the show. It's like an egg where the yolk, the yellow part, is the moon, the white is the sun, and the ascendant, the shell that everyone sees, your personality is this. It's the ascendant. I said that correctly. Yeah. So that's the classic battle, right? And I've literally have therapy where with my therapist we do parts work around this, right? Where I'll talk about something from one perspective, and my therapist will check me and be like, okay, are you splitting, Jesse, between like Pisces side and then Sag Leo in my case side. In your case, it'd be like, or it's like Sag Leo Aquarius. In your case, it'd be like Sag Gemini Aquarius, right? And so yeah, they both want very, very different things. They square each other, the sun and the moon, right? And it's 2 degrees square, so very tight square. So there's lots of that square means lots of things. I'll talk about that in a second. But and let me actually share the screen, but I need to move your name. M. Okay, share screen. So here's your chart. Let me hold this. Okay, so basically, I keep scratching myself. Um, basically, the Sag moons have an emotional need for traveling. They have an emotional need for exploration. Like you're from South Africa. I'm not sure if you live in the States or not, but I'm a Sag moon. Also, as I said, I live in Romania. I'm French American. I grew up in the States. So Sag moon is very common for them you know, to really want to experience a different culture or different cultures and fully like just um completely just like dive deep into that culture. And it's Sag moon people are very philosophical, right? So they have a need to grow, like they have a need to continuously find different avenues through which they can expand their understanding of the world, right? Their understanding of truth, right? That's what Sag is all about, truth. And you have your moon close to the royal star Antares. Very interesting. A degree and a half away. Talk about that later. But basically, and your sun's not too far from Fomalhaut either. So you got like some royal stars, there's 4 of them that are close by certain points, but not smack on them. But anyways, yeah, so it's like Sag moons like can get very like when they can get very restless if things are always the same. And the Aquarius parts of you are also really, really like that, right? They give you this immense need for space and relationships. You know, you value freedom like none other. Like it takes one to know one. Like you, like for you, like your number one value is most likely freedom. So when it comes to relationships, for example, like the traditional type of relationship isn't most likely going to be very appealing to you. Now you do have Saturn on your Venus, so that could kind of make it a little bit different. And you just had your Saturn return also. So congratulations, as it has just entered Pisces. So your Saturn return is officially over. Um, I mean it's been over mostly, but when it enters a new sign, it's like really over, right? Um, So yeah, like the Sag part, I always say like my Pisces part just wants to like, yeah, just chill, be in my like comfort zone, kind of like be in my own energy. And then but then like the Sag part, like I just got back from Amsterdam, right? Like for like a concert slash like 2 day kind of like festival, I guess you call it, 2 day festival. And like I realize like when I'm in a different country, like I realize it just opens up. Like things just happen. Like the Sag Moon people, when they take risks, they get very like God rewards them for the risks, right? Especially when it comes to traveling. I'm trying to get my camera right. So you'll like meet the right people, for example, travel like when you're traveling. But it's not just physical traveling, it's also metaphoric traveling, right? Wisdom. Always, the Sag Moon's always looking for new ways to learn. So there's a low and a high vibe of everything in astrology, right? So for the Pisces and Sag, the low vibe of Pisces is escapism, right? It's not, oh my God, how do I have such cat hair all over me? But it's like, yeah, it's escapism and it's like kind of like fooling the self, right? Lying to the self and also not acting, right? But because you have so many active planets, I doubt that's the case. And Pisces is a sign, it's the last sign. It's unlike any other sign because it's a mix of the first 11. So you'll never meet two Pisces that are the same. But for you, life is just like it's just one big adventure, right? Um, it's just one big adventure and one big lesson. Like you're really here to learn. Your North Node's in Capricorn, the eighth house. So yeah, really here to kind of like have lots of different experiences to get deeper spiritually, um, deep into your core, right? Um, and accept change. Because with South Node represents like, and you'll see you're Mercury in Pisces, so you'll see that like I always kind of like go around and come back and kind of connect. It's like uh, a puzzle in my head that I create when I do these readings. Um, but the South Node in astrology is your. Maybe I'll text you right now. So I love like all like the little things I do. You're probably gonna be like, I do that stuff too. I'm gonna text your friend. Okay. And the question is, where are you at? You're here. You have. Yeah. So crazy, 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 crazy. So, but the South Node, right, being Cancer in the second house, there's a past life tendency for you to stay too close to home, right? For you to not take enough risks, for you to not, to maybe like let's say like embrace the kind of like mother role, for example, would be a good example of this too much, right? And stay close to home. So in this lifetime, your goal, your karmic goal is to get out there, and take risks and do things that are just different, that can give you a new perspective because in past lives you've kind of allowed yourself to be a little bit stagnant. Just not every past life. I'm saying like with the karma we're dealing with in this lifetime, right? Like like an example would be like the mother who kind of sacrifices their life to raise their kids, who sacrifices their potential for creativity, right? And it's not to say that you're not ever going to be a mother, or that that's not in your karma. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that, it's like the reason that you have this energy is because you're meant to the moon is the instinct. So your instinct is like, especially under stress, is to make a change, right? So another great thing about the Sag moon is that the Sag moon, so you're a Jupiterian like myself, so you're always looking at the big picture, right? um and Sag, and I'll talk about some like the lower kind of potentials for Sag moon too, but they're like, everything's a lesson, right? So that's like what's so beautiful about Sag moon, is that something bad can happen. And this is good and bad, so follow me here. So something, and this is so funny because like this is like I've studied my own chart like forever, so it's like I'm telling you things that like like I had to learn, that like were like revelations and stuff, that like, because our charts are so similar. So that like I've learned it myself, and I've seen other people as well. So because Sag moon, they don't, it's very future oriented, right? So it's not, especially with Aquarius, it's like you're probably not someone who's like a stuck in the past type person, like you're looking forward, you're moving ahead, you're thinking about the future, you're thinking about the present and the future. The past isn't really like something most likely that comes to you. You're in the here and the now. You're Gemini rising. Gemini is about the here. It's about movement. It's the social butterfly. So because you've been held back in past lives from that exploration and from that fun, in this life you're here to have fun. Sag is the funnest sign, right? Most fun sign, or what, up there, right? Sag, Leo, yeah. Sag, like it's like the sign of the party. But so because Sag, so let's say a really bad thing happens. Sag might look at that situation and say, okay, this happened, but this, was a lesson for me, right? So instead, so you're able to take that occurrence and almost shift it into something positive, right? So you'd think, okay, this is a good thing, but at the same time, if something traumatic happens, um, sometimes Sag moon people will not allow themselves to feel bad, right? Like they'll just be like, yeah, it is what it is. I'm not, what's the point of me like crying about this? Like I want to move forward. So when people with Sag moons have trauma, sometimes they find ways around it and they don't deal with it, but it still affects them unconsciously, right? So um because they're so like internally optimistic, like a Sag moon is an internal optimist, like no matter what, like I'm not saying they're always happy, but like, you know a Sag moon can be down for a little bit, but it won't be very long. It's very rare that a Sag moon, you know and you don't have any of the aspects that would contribute to like depression or anything like that. And I've been depressed in my life, but like even within my darkest times, I've still always found positivity, which was a bad thing because I had a very tumultuous first 25 years of my life, right? Um, and also there's like that potential for excess, right? With Sag, always wanting more, always pushing things to the limit. But what's really important for you, um, is to be around people who also, like yourself, believe that anything is possible. Like I said with the Pisces part, how that can kind of like, you have to protect your dreams. You have to protect your thoughts, and like you're very, very sensitive, and that Pisces part, like I said, it can be tricked. So having the right people around you is so important. And it's better to have no one than someone bad, especially in partnerships, right? And we'll get into that a little bit. Oh my God. Scratchy, scratchy, scratchy. So yeah, so that's like a good and a bad thing, right? It's like internally optimist, always like trying to turn everything that happens into a lesson. Um, you know, really, really deep conversation type person, a natural teacher, it's like the Sag moon, it's the archetype of like the gypsy. Like they start out as like the gypsy who just like wanders and goes from place to place. Um, and it's so natural for them, right? To just be in different cultures and to be with different types of people, right? Because like your Venus in Aquarius, you value originality. You value like you're not going to be friends with someone just because of their social status, you know? Yeah, you have a 10th house sun, but like, you're really in a partner or just in general, like you value people who are not afraid to be themselves, their true authentic selves, right? And that's how you are as well. Um, and also you really value, like I said, freedom. So, yeah, like I'll get into love stuff after, but like like your chart like is like the anti-clingy times a million, like any kind of codependency. But it's interesting though, because your moon is on the descendant, so we'll talk about that. There's some mixed messages, right? But you understand the split, right? Like the Sag part is fire. It's fire. It's like it's like, so there's this internal flame within you that's like, let's do this, let's go, let's change things up. But then the Pisces part is like, it has to be careful, right? Because it's a Gemini rising, that makes someone who's very social, right? Who is very communicative, um, and who wants to have different conversations with different people, different types of people, and just experience a lot. They're a social butterfly. So the danger is that in that exploration, you come across people who, aren't good energetic matches. Now, as a Pisces, like I said, um, Pisces are the people who see the good in everyone, right? And that's good. That's a beautiful thing. But it's also dangerous. Why is it dangerous? Well, for obvious reasons, because energy vampires, right? People who appear, like they can sometimes fool themselves in love with like the rose colored glasses. Oh no, this person's good, this person's good, because the Pisces in you is so compassionate. It sees the potential good that every human has, right? But it's really important to like look at someone and be like what is the reality of that person? What is what is the true? And so that's like why having friends that you can really rely on for that real kind of like um that that feedback that might not be so easy to hear in the moment, but is real. So it's important to have friends who aren't yes men or yes women, who just tell you how it is. And in love, it's really important for you to take things very slowly. um but yeah, that split comes from like the really really active part of you, and then the part of you that definitely needs some time alone. So when you're engaging socially, um having, another thing with Pisces is that they can really lack boundaries, right? um like they can have a difficult time saying no, and you could see why that'd be difficult, right? You meet all these people because you're Gemini rising, Sag moon, but then you know the Pisces. So it's like, so in love, it's like, and this is like my experience also, or it's that. So I've dated like a lot of women in my life, right? Um, I have a girlfriend now. We've been together for a while, but before that, it was very like tumultuous, right? And I imagine it's the same for you because we have the same chart. Um, but you're also a woman, so it's not like I'm not saying that your love life was tumultuous. I'm just saying, and also I have Venus square Pluto. You don't have that, so don't worry. So mine was definitely way like it's not the same. It's just more about what we value being similar. But um on this front, it's probably similar where like let's say I would meet a girl, right? We'd hit it off, all that, but she would only like me for my Leo Sag side, right? But then when the Pisces showed up, that sensitive, side, there'd be like a disconnection because Pisces and Sag are so fucking different, right? Um, and then there'd also be the opposite where usually not where they'd like the Pisces side, it's usually the Sag Leo side because that's what showed the most, right? So for you, it's the exact same thing, but with Gemini and Sag. Um, basically like coming off as someone who can go back and forth between introvert and extrovert. It's almost like having two different personalities. So how do you bring them together, right? Um, and in relationships, it's about finding a person who can value that watery side of you, who can value that really sensitive, compassionate, like water signs. Like it's this thing that's hard to put into words, right? But I think you know what I'm talking about. When you're with like, I'm sure you have like Scorpio, Cancer friends, Pisces friends, people who have those planets, in their charts. Like you feel something, or maybe you've dated guys like that, or women. I don't know your sexual preference, whatever. Um, the point is that you feel a certain familiarity with other water signs, right? And when someone lacks water, it's almost like you can't connect with them in like a very unsaid type of way, right? Like and you feel like you have to always like over explain yourself, like why, like so like for example, like why do you need to be alone, why like it's all in your head. That's a classic one, right? Like because Pisces can they can get anxiety, they can get very overwhelmed by stimuli, right? So that would be kind of the difficulty, would be um this back and forth between um just being very, very active and very out there, and then also needing that. So really it's about learning to follow that internal voice, that intuitive internal voice, which has been activated as Neptune has gone over your Sun and your Mercury lately. And learning to truly like allow that intuition to guide you, when it comes to people, when it comes to situations. But like the big difficulty is around boundaries and around like being able to tell someone like, look, like I need my own space. I need time alone. So I guess we can move into this. We'll move back to this stuff after. But um as an Aquarius Venus and Aquarius Mars, that's like a very big indicator of like someone who's like a genius level person, right? And even your Mercury has sextiles with Neptune and Uranus, right? And trines Pluto. So you're very intelligent for sure. Um, but you might be misunderstood, right? Um, you might feel very misunderstood, and almost like it's you're like me, so you're like an alien, living in a human body. And you will, like I said before, just not be down in any way, shape, or form for I like to close my eyes sometimes when I do this. somewhat like codependent people, right? Because as a Venus and Aquarius, you value your own freedom, your own liberty, your own space. Like you're like the ideal relationship is where, it's unconventional, first of all. And I can tell you examples from my life, like my girlfriend, me, like I would never share a room with anyone. Like I believe that the room, your room is your sacred space, and that um, you know, it's healthy to kind of have it's very healthy to have your own lives, and come together, but not be stuck together, right? And as with your chart, as your Sag moon and your Aquarius placements, there's that desire that need to really individualize, right? So in relationships, it's very important that there is a level of space. You might even be someone who prefers long distance relationships or semi long distance relationships, but these readings are very powerful because, like, I can imagine myself if I were in your shoes, right? Or if I were me but not an astrologer, and I was getting a reading and someone was telling me this for the first time, I would be like, holy fuck. Because like people had shamed me and said all these bad things, made me feel like I was like fucked up, but it's all in my chart, right? There's a certain level of genius to Mars and Aquarius, a certain way of doing things, very, very, very for the people, very like humanitarian, very loving of your friends. So like people with charts like yours and mine might value friendships just as much or even more than romantic relationships. Now, with that said, the big caveat in your chart is that your moon is on the descendant, which is the seventh house cusp, right? I think that, one sec. I'm gonna stop my video and just share the screen because I want to just get deep into the meditation. So yeah, like Mars and Aquarius, Venus and Aquarius, like you value originality. You value someone who like there's a saying that's like, if there's anyone who is gonna date like someone who's like in a wheelchair or something like that, who has like some like big disability, it's gonna be a Venus and Aquarius, right? Because intellectual stimulation is what it is for you. Um, you need that, right? You need to be with someone where you feel like they're like you're able to grow with them, but at the same time, you're able to grow separately, but help encourage each other. Um, and the Pisces side of you needs there to be this very like clear um boundary around space and around freedom and the understanding of that. Um, Now with the moon on the descendant, which I don't have that, that actually is interesting because that makes it so you take a lot of your emotional there's a huge emotional need for relationships. It makes you a very relationship oriented person. In a lot of moon setting, as it's called, people that can be codependent, right? There's a potential for that, even though your chart is completely anti-codependent. Because the moon being there means that you get a lot of your emotional needs met in relationships. So there's like a big emotional need for these partnerships, right? Um, but then the nature of them need to like you cannot feel in a relationship like you're losing your sense of you, right? You need to feel like you're with the person. It might even be better not to live together, at least for sure, right, right away, even though that's exactly what I did. But circumstances kind of force that. But just to understand that you'll be very unconventional in what you value. So you might be with your girlfriends and like you talking about guys. They're like, oh, I like this guy, I like this guy, I like this guy. Maybe they have like a somewhat of a consensus. You might be like, no, I like this guy. And they're like, what? And they're like, why? And you're like, he's super, like he or she, whatever, is um, there's like they're they're not afraid to be themselves. Like they are complete, and they're like the thing about Venus and Mars and Aquarius is that they're not only do they need that freedom and that space, energetic space, right? They are very good at giving it. And they're not the types of people who are gonna just need to be like so close all the time, right? Like they really, and with your Juno being in Pisces, you do want a spiritual union also, right? Like you do want a man who's spiritual, a man who's compassionate and who understands that Pisces side of you, right? Who you can talk to and literally who listens and who really understands. Like if you were to say, like, for example, like, look, like I love you or I like you a lot. This is just how I am. Like when I'm alone, I just, I'm a dreamer. I have my best ideas, my best thoughts. Um, I love your company, but for me to be happy, I can't feel engulfed, So that's like why like the water part, why, it's so important is that having those conversations can be difficult because they run so contrary to like the mainstream kind of idea of what a relationship should be, right? Two men or not two men, a man and a woman sleeping in the same bed, doing everything together, blah blah blah, right? Your idea of it will be completely based on your own individuality and your own discoveries and your own ideas. So you'll be and as a Sag moon, you'll have many of your own philosophies, right? So, it's very, very important that the person understands that and respects that. And you'll feel it as a sensitive Pisces. You'll feel, so let's say you're with someone who you have that conversation with them and they understand it cognitively, but then energetically, they're not really respecting it. Like you can still feel a sense of resentment of that from them, of you not like um giving them the attention they deserve, or like all this shit. Maybe they shame you like in some type of way, right? So that is just an indication that's just not the right kind of person for you, right? Because there are plenty of people that exist that have, that also, and you're very intelligent. I know that for sure. So a lot of very intelligent people, especially very intelligent and philosophical and spiritual people like myself and you, like it's when they're alone that their best ideas and best inspirations come to them. And that it's almost like a cat energy, right? Um, it's like it's like the person needs to allow you to come to them, right? Um, and you can be fiercely loyal, like very, very loyal because Saturn is conjunct your Venus. So a lot of times that means that like your most important love affairs won't come until after your Saturn return, which is like just ended. So some stuff could if there's anything that came up like during your Saturn return, like love wise, it could be very significant, right? During or in this period after. Um, with that said, with that said, yeah, your needs are just gonna be very. and your values are just going to be very, very different than the traditional ones. So if you come from a very traditional family, you'll probably be seen as the black sheep. But with that said, the fact that you're a Gemini rising, it allows you to exist in this world and, to go through life in a way that is like, I call it like the social butterfly or the journalist. Like, you're here to like collect data, right? You're here to collect data, which you're ascendant, right? And you're like a journalist, right? You the Gemini ascendant part of you is like going around talking to all these different types of people, all these different types of conversations, and then the Sag Moon part of you is it's about always building on your worldview and always adding this piece, that piece, and grow and like creating from those like little Gemini pieces of info. It's like about creating these grand guiding philosophies. And another thing about Sag moons though is that at a lower vibe of Sag moon is that they have spent so much time, um, finding truth, finding, ultimate truth, as I call it, that they want to sometimes force it down other people's throats. And it's really important to know that everyone has their own truth and everyone has their own time for, you know, for finding that truth, right? So the best thing you can do is, like, let's say like you have like a sibling or a really close friend who, and you've learned all this amazing stuff. Let's say you're really into astrology, right? And you just like, oh my God, you're like, this could benefit this person so much that they would just listen, and you're a natural teacher, right? But they don't want to. And sometimes the Sag moon can kind of just go too far to try to like get the person to listen and to learn from them. Another thing is that Sag moons, even though it's known as like that, open-minded, all that, they can be sometimes dogmatic in their philosophies and not actually allow as much wiggle room. So it's really important for you to have that energy, because you are immutable, a triple mutable, sun, moon, and rising, all immutable signs. You're a complete go with the flow type of person, right? You're someone who just flows through life, right? So it's important for you to, to make decisions that, um, on one hand, are rooted in your intuition, but also for you to, whether it's through like meditation, which I would highly suggest, like for you, like not having Earth, it's really important to for me, it's running, right? It used to be meditating, now it's running. To have whatever that is in your routine, that grounds your energy, because as like with what you have all the most creative and out there energies, but you lack the boring energies. But the thing about the boring energies, not that all Earth is boring, is that they provide consistency. So someone with your chart would be the kind of person that would really struggle to like wake up each day and feel like the same version of themselves, right? So it's really important to have a routine in order, or some sort of routine. It doesn't have to be like a perfect routine, right? That like for example, my running, I know if I run most days, that each day that I run, um I'm gonna be either at my highest self or close to it, and it provides me that balance. Because what can happen is that sometimes people with charts like this can use substances and use escapism, um to provide, like they could use, like, for example, drugs to serve as that grounding, right? Um, so healthy, kind of consistent routines that work for you is really important, and having boundaries around that too. So let's just say for you it's running also, right? Or yoga. Let's say yoga. Let's say you have yoga, but then your friends are like, no, no, come meet me here, come meet me here. It's like you need to really put yourself first and know that like the only way that you can truly give back at the highest level is by you being at your highest vibe. And when you don't have earth, that, like, for example, like, you can wake up one day and a nightmare you had can affect you so heavily, right? And make you feel like completely out of your body. So learning how to get into your own body, right? Um, is just so important, because like the energy in your chart is like a fucking Ferrari, or like, um, it's like a, yeah. So it's or it's like, a carriage driven by 9 different horses, right? So it's like learning how you can only drive that when you're concentrated, right? When you're balanced, when you're stable, or else it just can go in all different directions. Um, so back to kind of the South Node, North Node journey, which a lot of my readings are predicated on that. You're here to, so a lot of people with South Node in Cancer, North Node in Capricorn, they are here to be their own metaphoric fathers in this lifetime. Like I said, past lives have been spent where you didn't take enough risks, where things were nice and pleasant, but because of that, you didn't feel the need to kind of go out and see different perspectives and take these risks, right? So the eighth house North Node in Capricorn, on one hand, it's asking you to take risks as it relates to spiritual transformation, death, rebirth, transformation, right? That's the eighth house. And things like this, like astrology, the occult, esoteric, psychology, anything that gets you beneath the surface and into your true shadow. Like, you're here to really do a lot, to do some shadow work, right? So that's really, really important. And in Capricorn, I see it so often where people who have that, they had like a bad relationship with their father. Maybe their father was like a drinker, or maybe like passed early. And it could be father or mother, but like usually it's father with the Capricorn, right? Um, or in some way, like the father, because you're so different, right? You're so unique, um, isn't necessarily might be a great person, but isn't necessarily like a great guide for you, right? So it's like for example, in my family, like there's not really anyone, like I'm my own father, like there's not really anyone that's like me in my family. You know what I mean? Like I'm super different. Um, like the way I see life, the way I do things, the way I move. So it's really important to kind of like remove, to kind of like only God can judge me kind of energy, right? Like to know that like people are, you can't rely on other people's advice. You have to really be your own leader, and that leads to self accountability, right? Um, which, like I said, not having Earth, it can be hard to have that consistency. Um, yeah. So then I didn't really speak on like the aspect energy of sun square moon. So that, typically parents are divorced, typically, not all the time, but usually. And if they're not divorced, they have very, very different worldviews. So if you were to write down like a paragraph or a page or whatever, I have a book called Pisces Live Then. You should okay, get my book 1,000%. I make like $3 for each copy sold. I don't even check the sales, but I swear your chart's so similar to mine. And it's not a book about me. Like only the first 2 chapters I talk about my life. After that, it's just like ideas. And I feel like you resonate so much with like what I talk about. It's on Amazon, Pisces Live 9 Lives. Um, but I actually write about the main kind of lessons that my mother and my father, like not lessons, like I really like dug deep into myself. Like, what have I taken from my mom? What have I taken from my dad? And I realized through writing that how different. Like I always knew they were different, but just like how incredibly different these two individuals are. Like it's insane, right? So that's confusing, right? Because we all unconsciously take things from our parents, even if we're more evolved than our parents, which, I am more evolved than everyone in my family. My mom's very evolved, so I don't want to like compete with her, but like, um, let's just say like, uh, yeah, I mean, I would probably say that I'm the most spiritually, like soul-wise evolved person in my family. Um, so I've always had to be my own parent. Even though my mom's a great mom, I've always known that like the real wisdom comes from within myself, and that's how it is for you too. And there can be a lot of self-doubt with that Pisces, right? Because especially in this world, this patriarchal world of do, it's very important for you to kind of like take a break and really like think like what do I really fucking care about, like what really gets me going, right? Like, and you know so I can give examples from my life. I usually don't like talk about myself, but when it's a chart that's like mine, so like all of like as a Sag moon, all of the greatest things that I've found in my life have come from me being spontaneous and saying fuck it and just taking a risk based on intuition. Yes, it's a calculated risk, like moving to Romania, for example, right? Which has been a tremendous success. But that was all based on me being fucking crazy and wild and being like, I'm gonna just go visit this place, Cluj-Napoca, uh, which came from me one day randomly when I lived in America, being like, and I've always been really into geography, which I assume you are too. Sag moons, like I talked to a lot of Sag moon friends, and one thing that like it's funny is like all Sag moons like just love looking at maps. They just like love just like spending time on like whether it's like Google or whatever, just looking at globes or maps and just like wondering like I'd always look at places and just like wonder like I wonder what it's like for people who live there. It's a big world. And Cluj like was literally like this is like speaking to like the kind of like this is like the more of the Mars and Aquarius energy you have, right? Which can make one like very random, but there's like a method to the genius, right? It's like a when I say genius, I mean like someone who sees who is like an artist who the artist, the creator of their own life, of their own destiny. I think I wrote about it the other day, right? The artist is the person who um understands who they are as a person and then crafts a life that mimics that perfectly, right? And human design, which by the way, if you ever want to get a reading, one of my good friends just started doing readings for that, and she's fucking incredible. I just had a reading from her the other week, and it blew my mind. It's the best thing you can get with astrology. But that helped a lot. Kind of filling in some of the blanks, like random little things, like why I stay up so late, things like that. Like why it's okay for me to only eat once a day, blah blah blah. Um, but yeah, for you, like it's so important, like with the Mars and Aquarius, it like to like I was telling you, like I just randomly like had this idea. I was like, I'm just curious of like what the biggest electronic music festivals are in Eastern Europe. I've never even been to Eastern Europe. So I checked it out and I saw this one called Untold in Cluj, where Talita's from and where I live. And I then watched a video of like one of the sets from it, and I instantly was like, "What the fuck?" I'll be honest. I was like, "Damn, these girls are fucking I like this is unreal how beautiful they are." But like, I was also like, "This vibe is so like, what is this vibe? Like, it's so like, there's something about it." And there's other festivals too that I've been to, and that like in Serbia and stuff that were great, but Romania just stuck out, and even the word Romania stuck out, right? No reason. So this is what I'm telling you is that you don't have to have a reason for anything you do. You just have to fucking follow your gut. And in human design, and so I can't confirm this for you, but like the type of thinker I am is like I know in my gut, if it's a yes or a no. So if people ask me yes or no questions, like I'm nearly always correct, right? Um, so now I ask myself yes or no questions, right? Um, of course, sometimes it's like, it's hard, it's tough. Like when you're like for example, if I'm like, is Cluj, am I gonna live in Cluj the rest of my life? Like I don't know. You know what I mean? There's some things where you just don't know. But like when it comes to like people, for example, so like the gut instinct. But anyway, so like I looked at that video and instantly I was like, I need to go there. And then I was in France with my family after Christmas, and I had like a week or 10 days, no, 10 days to 2 weeks extra before my school restarted. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna either go to Istanbul or Cluj. And I went to Cluj. And after 15 minutes, I knew I was gonna live there. I'm not even joking. That's how crazy the karma was and how meant to be it was. And I told you at the start that the Sag moon gets rewarded when they take these risks, right? So I'm trying to validate this in you, this need for you to follow your gut and for you to just like know that like, you know, your intuitions will guide you. But then there's the idea of like, what's the difference between, this is why it's so important for you to be in a high vibe, right? Because sometimes the imagination and the delusions of the lower energy of Pisces, and we always, cycle between the lower and the high of Pisces, and of everything in our chart. It's like what's the difference between like imagination, delusion, and intuition? That comes from meditating, that comes from getting deeper in your spirituality, which that's what your eighth house north node is asking you to do. It's asking you to get really deep within yourself, where you're not lying to yourself at all about anything. There's no self-delusion. It's purely like, this is my truth, dealing with your own trauma if you have trauma, like who doesn't, and really just like being very honest with yourself, right? And taking risks. So luckily your moon Sag just makes it easy to do that. So yeah, the Mars and Aquarius energy is like, there's a method to the madness. And also Mars and Aquarius, like it's very hard to know like what makes the Mars and Aquarius tick, right? Because Mars is like your action, Aquarius is like, I mean, obviously there's the parts of it where it's like, you're definitely going to be like a humanist, like someone who looks out, who's very charitable, who like, wants to help people and all that. It's also going to make you very social and really love your friends and love your friends who are very unique and very, very like themselves, who are not like just the conditioned, like what do they call them? I can't remember the name. People who just like basically have no personalities. Like you are looking for those kind of like real souls, But like as opposed to like Mars and Aries and Mars and Leo, like Mars and fire signs, like you're being dominated by someone who has that. But Mars and Aquarius, it's like they're like chess players. It's like you like you can be getting dominated by one. And I don't mean that like in a bad way, but you don't know. Just super slick. Um, so like Mars and Aquarius also is experienced as just someone who thinks outside the box and someone who acts outside the box, So sometimes the actions you have can not make sense to other people. So that's why it's so important for you to just not give a fuck about what other people think about you. It's easier said than done, but and also having Venus in Aquarius, your what you value is going to be very, very eccentric and different. So it doubles down on that importance to not give a fuck. Um, yeah, and Aquarius is like I said, it's all about freedom. It's all about space. It's all about individualization. So yeah, I already spoke about how that would play out in a relationship. Now having Saturn on your Venus can create like difficulties with self-love that get easier after the Saturn return. And then that kind of like self-doubt can kind of show up in relationships too and kind of be a little bit tumultuous. But the key is to just be very, very clear with like being that artist that you are, you know, of being like, you know, this is how I want my life to be. So so the person who, if someone's going to be in my life, they have to fit in. Of course, you know, one does have to make compromises, but not to an extent to where it's keeping you away from what your birth chart's asking you for, right? So, yeah, I just want to say that. And I'll never tell you like this is the sign for you, that's the sign for you. Like I do compatibility readings if you are in a relationship. I love doing those. I'm very, 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 very expert at those too. Um, like I did one the other day, and the person was literally told me, she literally said, "You were 100% correct about every little detail. It was insane." And that's like what I get from most of my readings. Um, and most astrologers don't do these types of readings, by the way. They do live readings where they can talk to the person, which is really, really good too. And this is another thing that me and you probably have in common, is that because I have no earth, because I'm like you, this is the only work that works for me, the only way of working, because I can't choose when I'm inspired. You can't choose when you're inspired, you know? Um, so if I schedule all of my readings, like for example, if our reading was like scheduled like 2 months ago for 9 p.m. Romanian time, you know what I mean? Like how do I know that during that time I wouldn't be going through some kind of crisis, some kind of mini crisis, you know? And that's the Pisces brings. The Pisces brings that kind of like up and down. Also, the Pisces brings this real chameleon like energy where you're able to really fit in and really just kind of like feel your way into different social situations and social groupings, and it just works. Um, Also, I think with your ninth house Venus, that adds to your love of travel. It also makes it likely that you would marry slash like have relationships with people from different cultures. And Mars ninth house is pushing you towards that that Sag moon kind of need for truth and for travel and for all that stuff, right? Even education, um, higher philosophy, all these things. But your philosophies with Aquarius ruling that ninth house are probably going to be very different than the traditional. You know, they're gonna reflect the Aquarian kind of new age, very ways of thinking. But you're also someone who can see through bullshit. You know, you're able to compartmentalize, right? Like you're able to, for example, like listen to someone, take the parts that because you have that intuition, right? So you can like read a book or watch like a podcast and take the parts of someone that you like or the messages that you like that resonate with you, and then leave the rest and not be some big like judgmental person. So oh, that person sucks, you know, because nothing is black or white. Um, so yeah, back to like kind of like the integration of Sag and Pisces. For me, what I ultimately found is that it came from um one, moving was really important. Like I've moved to like 8 or 9 different places, right? I've lived in a lot of places, but um I think that it's very difficult for someone with a chart like yours or mine to, because we're always evolving, we're always growing, and a lot of people aren't. So it can make it difficult for us to kind of like still resonate with the people we grew up with that maybe at one point in time we were like more on par with in terms of like our development. But because we're always learning, because you're always learning, you're always expanding your idea of what is in different areas of life. um that's why like moving and being in different places can be good, because you can outgrow people very easily. And then the Pisces part can feel bad about it and internalize shame that shouldn't be yours. um and kind of make it so like, because like people will try to pull you back into the older version, lower version of you, right? And it's very important to kind of like understand when that's happening and to kind of push back. So I think that the fact that your midheaven's in Pisces, right on my sun, by the way. So we might even be karmic friends, honestly. And I look forward to. I think you did. She get the follow up? I forget. Let me check that real quick. Damn, already an hour 10. I'm just flowing. My eyes have been closed for past like I don't even know how many minutes. But that's what it is. We are artists, and the artist has to just like have people around them that don't fuck with them. Um, the Pisces especially. Okay, where is she? Wait, I'm so confused. So she got okay. So she just got two readings without follow 'cause for a big discount too. Wow, she had a huge. I gave Philly like a crazy discount. Holy fuck. But I would highly suggest for you to add. So what nearly everyone does is they get the reading and then they get the reading and follow up. So the follow up is like a 1 hour long Zoom conversation where we go over everything, which I think would be very beneficial for you, considering that we have the same chart. Um, and what nearly everyone does, unless there's like a financial constraint, is that they add what I call the current astrology slash spiritual alignment. And instead of having just in 1 hour, it becomes like a 3 hour, sometimes a little bit more live Zoom reading where we meet. First hour, we talk about the chart, and then we move into the current astrology and just everything with life. You know, I talk about like I use all my predictive astrology tools to give you an understanding of like what's coming the year ahead, but also just in general in life. And there's always these crazy synchronicities. And honestly, I make a lot of friends that way. And with your chart, we have so much in common that I'm positive we hit it off, and um, I think it'd be very positive. So let me know if you're interested in that, and I'd give you like a crazy discount because I would also really love to meet you as well. But no pressure, obviously. You know how it is for us. No pressure. Okay, let me go back to share or turn this off. Share. So, anyways, so 10th house sun, super important. Now, this would be a ninth house sun in Placidus, but my system is 10th house. So it doesn't even really make a difference because it's like if it's a ninth house sun, it's like just speaking about how it just goes further with the whole Sag thing about like how important it is for you to learn and to find your your place in the cosmos, the three big questions like who are we, where we come from, where are we going, that kind of stuff, diving into the esoteric, the occult, traveling, all that, right? But with the 10th house, I see that more as like how important your dharma is to you. And how you, as a Pisces 10th house, your career slash what you do, you want to help people. You want to be like you could easily be some type of healer, right? Um, you could also be the kind of person that has more than one career, right? Um, that has like a revelation at some point that leads them to kind of like want to shift and do something different. Um, but 10th house suns, they are meant to shine in their I don't like to call it just career, but in their dharma, like in their outer life. They're meant to shine. And with your south node in Cancer, which is the opposite, that might feel a little bit uncomfortable because there's a past life tendency to kind of stay close to home. And here you're being asked to really, really be in yeah, like to really make something of yourself. And Capricorn North Node, it's like asking you, it's like about success, it's about like not making excuses, not self-pitying, and like going into self-pity, right, which is a low vibe Pisces tendency. And to not make any excuses for yourself, and to truly, truly like build some strong foundations for yourself in your life. And you could also really benefit from different strong alliances you make, whether that's marriage or just partnerships in general. You can really benefit from them. And having your moon in the seventh would speak to like how relationships can be very emotional, but also very up and down. Um, yeah, some real mutability to them. Um, but you're meant to just like go and flow, right? So you can't feel stuck in any kind of situation, right? So it's not you being selfish if you're like not wanting to be friends with someone or to like be in a situation anymore that's no longer serving you, because your life is meant to go through these different, very distinct eras, right? So, the whole thing of like how you have to let something or someone or whatever go, make room for something new. You have to really be honest with yourself about the people and the situations and the things you're doing. Like, in my book I talk about like the energy bandwidth, how it's not my idea, but I have a lot of stuff to talk about in that book. We only have like 100 energy points each day, right? Where is that going? You For example, let's say you're in a relationship that's like you're not really like you've been thinking about leaving it, but it feels comfortable, but it takes up a lot of your time and energy. It's like, okay, well, or even like a certain job, right? I know everyone's got to pay their bills, but it's like, um at the end of the day, you really, really want to help people, right? And you want to be of real service to humanity. So you have the chart of like a therapist or a healer for sure, like 1000%. If that's what you do, then that'd be very interesting. But like you really like want to probe deep into the unconscious of people, and you have all these gifts. You have Uranus, Neptune, Ceres, Vertex, all in the eighth, so in the North Node. So it's like that. When you're able to calm your mind, right? So this is the big thing for you, is to find that balance, that ground. But when you're able to do that, you literally can receive downloads. Like it's like you have these antennas where you can just receive downloads when you're meditating, and you suddenly just know something. You're like, how the fuck did I know that? And with Neptune, you're able to really feel the undercurrent of other people's energy. So you make the best like psychologist or therapist or coach or anything. Even it can be in any arena of life, right? But the thing is that as a Pisces, um, your work environment is super important to you. And with Pluto in the sixth house, that even adds another clue, because you're really, really here. I feel like a star seed energy with you. I don't know where that came from, but I have my download crystals in my hand right now. So I do get downloads also when I do these readings. And Pluto sixth house, I think of it as like, if you overwork yourself in the wrong way, there's going to be health issues. But if you focus on your routine and on your health and on all emotional, physical, spiritual, all that, like it's your fucking karmic date, like just like really being consistent with it and not being perfectionist. If you like, you can't always be 100%. That's the key. But it's about moving. It's like, yeah, you have been a big giver, but you're meant to in this life also be of service, but it's just in a different way. It's in a way that's more public, right? So in past life, so it's really about like you taking these past life talents, right? And finding an avenue or avenues, right? To use them to benefit humanity. And that doesn't always happen overnight. Sometimes a lot of times it takes the Saturn return for the person to truly find themselves and to truly decide, oh, like I want to change path, you know? Um, But because you have so much mutable energy, which is the changeable energy, you're someone who's able to do that. You're someone who's able to make quick decisions. So yeah. But with that said, you have some squares and oppositions. You have a T square with Jupiter and your sun and your moon. So that's super, super important. It shoots out in well, actually the moon's the apex, so it shoots out in Gemini. Well, actually, no, it's a grand cross. Or grand square. So basically, you know, that would shoot out at your ascendant in Gemini in the first house, and that would kind of speak about like how like you can be prone to like I said earlier with Sag moon, like Sag moon square Jupiter can be someone who takes too many risks. So you really need to like take time before making big decisions, but also follow your gut. You know what I mean? It's that balance between the two. And then the sun opposite Jupiter, it's similar in the sense that um, it's like the energy of the person who enters the casino and thinks that they're automatically gonna win, you know? So really like um first house Gemini is like it's saying that the resolution is through talking your way around, like talking about different decisions, even though I told you that the gut's very important for you, like really like finding the logic, finding the logic. And I always say sleep on it, right? My grandpa, he always gave that advice before any big decision: just sleep on it, see how you feel the next day. um but yeah, moon sextiling Mars and Venus. I'll go back to face cam for a little bit. So, that aspect, it's just making one very, very charming, very, very social, and, also very self-assured and ambitious and assertive, right? So, yeah. Also, one thing with the moon and Jupiter is there can be a tendency to be a little bit self-indulgent and apathetic. Um, like to kind of like ride on the camel's back, because it's more fun. So it's really about like that's another thing. Like I keep saying, like North Node in Capricorn, you're trying to become more self-disciplined in this lifetime, and it's all about you achieving your goals, right? Um, and then the sun opposite, Jupiter. What I'd add to that is that it can be difficult to kind of like it can make one restless and really difficult to like stay in one place, which is also part of the Tajman karma. Um, and sometimes like the larger than life kind of ideals can stand in the way of you achieving goals. And the Gemini rising person can start so many different things. So that's another thing to watch out for. Start start this, start that, start studying this, start studying that. And before you know it, you have like 100 different things you started. You want to find the few that you can really focus on, right? So yeah, it's like the balance between stability and adventure. That's literally like the Pisces and the Sag. But like the stability isn't in your chart. So it's Pluto in the sixth, um, you know, you're being asked even more, like your daily routine is playing even more of a pivotal role in your life, right? Um, and the need to recognize the power of the relationship between the mind and the body, right? So like you, if you're doing something like in a job or whatever, in a situation, in a relationship or whatever that isn't good for you, like you will literally have like a illness or something physical will come up, and that will be your sign. Your body is literally your guide. So the more you can get within your body, the better. Um, So yeah, I talk about your Mercury and Pisces, like super just, you learn through intuition. You are connected to the other side. Also the 10th house can make very good for like any kind of career and communications, anything where you can like share your thoughts and ideas. And yeah, just super, super intuitive, like an amazing imagination, right? And you can literally tune into other people's thoughts. But then, like I said, there's the difficulty with distinguishing between yours and others. Um, and then there can be times where you like disappear. The whole Pisces thing. Like I'm sure you're like that too. Where like there's periods of times where you just like dip out. Like you're like, I don't want to fucking answer this phone. Speaking of phones, this is super important. I'm happy I just grabbed my phone like that. Neptune rules screens, mirrors, phones, all that. So if you're ever in like a really difficult place where you can't make a decision or you're just feeling down, literally do like a fucking 15-minute like vlog of yourself, right? Um, and speaking of that, I just did a 15-minute vlog for my supporters or my subscribers, and it won't let me post it. It's like not letting me post. Um, Postings that are long. It's very sad. It's only letting me post 90 seconds. Crazy. Unless I do a live and post it the only way. Which I like doing anyways, but still. So anyways, yeah. So as I was saying, super important, the routine. Yeah. So with Jupiter in Virgo in the fourth house, that usually speaks like a very pleasant childhood. In Virgo, you have to watch out for perfectionism. Um, you know, you have to watch out for, like there's that also that strong desire to be of service too. Very, very spiritual. But yeah, there can be like an obsession for detailed perfection. You have to get over that. So you have to be okay with like, let's say like one day having 80, one day having 70, one day 40, one day 30, one day 100, then 100 again, 100 again, then you fall to 50. Like do your best, but like have a sense of humor. And Jupiter in the fourth house usually makes someone love large spaces, large homes, and also large families. Um, and they want to lead their family based on their philosophical ideals, right? And also they're the type of people like as a Sag Moon, you're probably the type of person that likes to really learn, and you probably have like stacks like this of books, like learn a lot from within your own home. And then you have Vesta there too. So Vesta in the fourth house in Virgo, that's another very strong perfectionist streak type vibe, right? Where you work really hard and you expect the same from other people. So it's like all about like avoiding being overly critical of yourself and then of others. But it also makes you really, really good at having efficient work. So it adds like that lack of earth. And the fourth house, that just makes one very committed to like kind of their home life, their family life. Really, really like looking at after their family members. Usually they have like extra responsibilities when they're growing up, which kind of prepares them for like a role of responsibility later in life. Now then you have Chiron in Leo. So this is very classic. In the third. So this makes I literally could have guessed this. So because of all of your very like black sheep, like just like ahead of your time, like Aquarius energy, you probably faced some type of like issues around that. And maybe growing up, you had like a difficult childhood and you weren't really allowed to kind of like be fun, have fun and be creative. Maybe you felt like you had to kind of shut up in the third house. There could have been some painful experiences around like you expressing, you communicating, you expressing your truth. So you kind of like kept it within yourself, right? So the healing is when you start to open your mouth, you start to really speak about the things the way you see the world because it's fucking beautiful and amazing. But yeah, Chiron and Leo people need to do inner child work, and they need to learn. And as a Sag moon, it's gonna make it a lot easier because it trines your moon. So it's like, that's actually like a sign of someone who's been meant to be a healer. But a lot of times these are people who have feelings of inadequacy growing up, and they can sometimes suffer like childbearing difficulties. Um, and yeah, they just need to learn to like just like be kids again, because maybe they like if like there was like for example like an early passing of a parent, you have to like step up and kind of like be that person, for example, right? Or maybe if the parents are always working, you know how it is. So yeah, okay. Uh, so yeah, part of fortune in Pisces. So your flow state is when you are literally, like spiritual unity really is your greatest joy. The greatest fulfillment comes when you are giving, like when you're in compassionate service to humanity. That's when you feel the best. In the 10th house, it's when that's being done as your job, as your dharma. Um, and also just like how like achieving like your worldly goals brings you lots of joy, and how in the area of career it's very, very good. And you have to like overcome like childhood inhibitions around that, and not have like the victim mentality. Um but yeah, having Jupiter in the fourth overall usually gives like quite pleasant childhood in some sorts, but in Placidus it would be third house, so it would speak more to like having like a real gift for communication. Um, and it's retrograde, so it makes like someone more inwardly philosophical. So you might not always speak like Sag moons like to speak about their philosophies, like but it might take more for you to get there. Um, okay, talk about that, talk about that, talk about that. So Pallas is in Sag on the galactic center, so you literally have like that ability to see the big picture of the universe. Like you love like I said, like the deep philosophical conversations. um just it's someone who's like a defender of the truth, right? And also it makes you really, really good in the 7th house of like being like a relationship counselor type person, like being able to like see how other people interact with each other, like really good for like a counselor, right? um but also there can be difficulty sharing your feelings with intimate partners, but that gets a lot easier around now. As I said, you have Venus conjunct Mars, and Venus conjunct Saturn. So then Mars is also conjunct Saturn, not as closely though. So that just makes someone usually quite shy and inhibited in their personal relationships, and really fearing commitment, which is a very Aquarius thing, fearing commitment, because you're like, fuck, if I commit to this person, like what does that do with my freedom? So it's really good to have things open and to have the conversations about that being your nature, right? Um, like yeah, so like usually people with this like prefer to be the ones in control. Um, so yeah, they don't want to be controlled by anyone else. And a lot of times like Venus conjunct Saturn, like one of the parents was too strict, which could have led to like, or told you that your way of thinking was bad, so it can make you, lead to that fear of self expression. Um, so yeah, but at the end of the day, like it's very good for being faithful and loyal and forming long-term relationships. Um, and then with the Mars one, Mars conjunct Venus, by the way, I had that too. That just gives a very strong sex drive. Very, very charming and assertive energy, super passionate. Um, Someone who like loves to, like share their adventures with their loved ones. Um, and just hype people up. And very, very, it also gives very high expectations in like with who you would date, um, which can lead to disappointment. Um, and my experience of it makes one very picky. Yeah, that's kind of how I've seen it. So then you have Saturn obviously also conjuncts Mars. So that can make it like, so that's going to be so nice for you right now, because it's like now you're feeling like you can fully express your energy, but maybe it was very difficult in the past. But a lot of successful people have Mars square, Mars conjunct, or Mars opposite um Saturn. And it's like now is like you have to go through so much bullshit, like two steps forward, three steps back, but then now you have that, you still have all that determination, that grit, without all the karmic bullshit, right? So yeah, it makes someone super ambitious, um, and someone who can slowly but surely reach their goals, even amidst setbacks, step setbacks. um, and it's really good for like self-discipline and self-organization, which helps out your lack of Earth. So Saturn, just like in my chart, Saturn's actually doing some good things for you. Um, Especially with like on your Venus, it's like, yeah, it can make self-love like more difficult growing up, and make one more kind of like to stick to themselves, but then it can actually like make you able to commit better at committing with relationships later on or now. So Black Moon Lilith is in Aquarius, so that is interesting because like that is like your kind of like you at your lowest, you at your lowest vibe, right? So Black Moon Lilith in Aquarius in the ninth house could be exactly that point of my philosophy is the only philosophy, like not like, so there's a need to like listen to other people. Aquarius, Black Moon Lilith, there's Aquarius is about what? It's about friends. So it can definitely create an energy where there's issues with friends. Also like God complex. I don't think you have that, but like as a Pisces, usually quite humble, but like there's that potential, but it usually comes from like a fear of powerlessness, right? Um, like fear of being like powerless, that can lead to like isolation, like criticism for not being strong enough. And a lot of people with that, like they can sometimes hide their weaknesses from the world and not want to like kind of talk about it, right? And Aquarius also, one of the low sides is like it can be very aloof in relationships, right? So um not showing much love, not showing much like I do that stuff. I don't like say I love you that much, or like I'm not like I'm just like very cool. They're very cool in relationships. But yeah. So it can also make someone like very judgmental on people that they deem weak. Um and it gives like this great power that can be used to either like build people up, which I've seen your chart in different ways, or crush them. So the person can either like fear their powerlessness, um, or the opposite, right? Fear their own power. So the integration from it comes from really facing yourself and asking yourself, um, of your use or refusal, to use your own power. So like self reinforcement is really good, um, to like stop yourself from neglecting yourself, and it's really important to like build people up every chance you get, um, and learn to like really work well with other people. So yeah. Um, mm, let's say. Also, something with crystals being important for you. Pets also with sixth house, like you can have like a really deep spiritual connection with pets. Um, and yeah, just your relationship being like a very important part, like your main like marriage relationship being like a very important part. Like it could even be someone you meet at work. But yeah, Juno conjunct Sun creates like a certain presence, ever since you're young. And definitely like the leader, so it gives really great ability to like relate to other people. Um, Also like you feel like you're best when you're in a relationship, which I've said before. Also makes like diplomacy, fairness, like you're really, really good when it comes to those values. And just really good at putting other people at ease. It's like therapists would do the best thing ever, like or something in that realm. Um, and yeah, just a really, really strong nurturing side, and being able to like deal just as well with men as you do with women. So okay. So Saturn in the ninth house. Okay, so Saturn ninth house, it can actually push away traveling and those things until the Saturn return. Which obviously probably didn't for you, but a lot of astrologers have this. It can actually sometimes push away like the study of truth, and like the meaning of life. But then like eventually you have like this really serious after Saturn return like investigation into like philosophies and all this stuff, right? That's why a lot of astrologers have it there, is because they may reject it at first, but then their Saturn return comes and then they're like, wow, I really like, they like get a clue of it. Who knows where it comes from? And then they're like, okay, I want to learn everything about this, and they just go crazy in this Saturn ninth house. People have that ability to just like really just dial in. So yeah. So let's see here. Okay. So let's look at that. So yeah, you can literally create like you probably someone who speaks quite fast, probably like very and listens fast. That's why I'm able to like speak this fast with you. Um and just like very ahead of your time. I already talked about that, but like, I'm just adding some mini aspects in. And yeah, just like a daydreamer, someone who can create through their intuition and yeah. And then Mercury and Pluto is very important to trine, because that gives you that ability to become obsessed with whatever you study. You have a very deep probing mind, right? Um, Able to assess situations very fast. Um, Words are straight to the point, and you just love getting beneath the surface, beneath the superficial and everything. So very, very special chart you have, my friend. Um, did I miss anything over here? Okay, here's some two tough ones. Well, I already said Moon, Chiron trine makes you a gifted healer. Um, you're really able to like face like the painful side of life, and then share your experiences like and heal people like in a very loving manner. But then you have Chiron, opposite Sun and opposite Venus and Mars. Chiron opposite Venus makes someone who usually like suffers in relationships. Um, um, and they can like be so busy caring for other people that they neglect their own needs. Um, so yeah, there's that need to have that balance in relationships of giving and taking, and nurturing yourself and trusting your own wisdom, especially when it comes to partners. So then Chiron in Mars, that's kind of like can be like self-sabotaging energy where you become your own worst enemy. Um, just like goes with like the Saturn one, where it's like your path to success has lots of like boulders in front of your path that you have to overcome. Lots of restrictions. Um, Maybe like earlier in life, home felt like more like a battlefield, even though you had Jupiter down there. You may have learned a lot earlier in life. It could have felt like less safe, more like kind of like, yeah, like difficult. And yeah, it can also be like different people like being like opposed to your achievements. So that's why I said earlier, like hide your dreams, you know. And also ninth house Black Moon Lilith, people can be jealous of your travels. So I would not post like your travels on social media because they can send you negative energy that way. And they can be jealous of your philosophies, right? And of your learning. So yeah. So yeah, it's just really important to not like subconsciously sabotage your own success, you know? Um, so that just comes from honoring your own worth, understanding your own unique path, um, and just like being that healer, you know, being that healer. So okay, let's see stars. So much in your chart, like damn. Okay, so okay, pick stars and asteroids. Okay, you have Jupiter conjunct Zosma. That just makes you a seeker of knowledge, of wisdom. That is like astrology, numerology, whatever it is, and Psyche conjunct Jupiter. So you're someone who uh will have that youthful look like your whole life, or like you'll continue to look young. But really, you're very interested in discovering like the true psyche and true, like, what really makes people run on a unconscious level. um so okay. Okay, yeah, and then of course I said you had Antares on your moon, so we'll talk about that in a sec. um You have Fama on your ascendant, so that can make someone famous. And you have this royal star on your moon. Um, I have to stare close at my computer because they're all so crunched together. You have lust on your Uranus and Neptune, so that can make some kind of like it's just like an erotic kind of placement, but like I have no idea what the fuck I would do with Uranus and Neptune, to be honest. I look at that more as like on the ascendant. I just don't know. And there's no information about it anywhere. Um, but I guess it gets activated. We can say that. For text on the 8th, you're definitely gonna have your most intense experiences, like um, lots of very intense experiences that push you towards that death rebirth transformation. um and then the doorway to higher awareness is through your success and through your worldly achievements, just like your north node, having vertex and north node both in the 8th house and Capricorn. It's just like doubling down on that message that I've been saying. So I don't see any of it. Can't tell what number is what. Turn the brightness down. If you saw what I was looking at, you'd be like, wow, how can you read this? Percent zero. Okay, so there's none there. And then here, none there. None on the midheaven. Okay, so yeah, it's basically just Antares on the moon. Right? And then one second. Mhm. Hmm. Okay, so Antares on your moon, super important. Antares is one of the four royal stars. It's a very rugged one, but when you have it on your moon, it makes one very popular. Very broad-minded, big picture. Very interested in philosophy, metaphysics, science. Um, Liable to change in religious slash spiritual opinions. Influential friends. This is like a definition reading. Um, Favorable for business and domestic matters, active in local affairs, great power, honor, and wealth, but benefits may not prove lasting. Um, and then domestic dramas and unshamedly, unashamedly temperamental, prone to emotional outbursts, devoted but verging on obsessive with family affairs. So that's that. But overall, it is a real star, and you have it very. You want to have it within 0.15 for it to like activate fame. Like these are the things that activate fame in a chart like the most. Yours is a degree 1.2 away. Esme, what's up, Esme? So yeah. Mm. So it can also be unfortunate for the eyes, it says. And it says a splendid and illustrious life, great, distinguished, and opulent nature. So it's great to have an Antares moon with how your chart is. So yeah, that is it, my friend. So let me know. I'll just tell you a price right now. If you want to do the follow up, usually it's 150. Um, I would do that for 120 for you. If you want to do both together, usually the other one alone is 380. Um, but I would do that full session for you to where um it would be 350 total. So I would reduce yeah, maybe 350 total for that long session instead of 530. So big discount. So let me know about that. Either way, it was a pleasure. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you for the waiting. Wow, I literally went 2 hours. Esme, stop it. Lose some weight, Esme. Very mad at you. Very mad at my little cat, Esme, for stealing other cats' foods. No, she's fighting headaches. Anyways, bye bye from Romania. Ciao, ciao. Hope to talk soon. Bye bye.